Hey guys, welcome back to the Noble Broker. I'm your host, Jonathan Lickstein. Here today on the Noble Broker, we speak with professionals and producers in the real estate industry to see behind closed doors, get to know who these people are, because we are more than just someone who sells homes. We're more than someone who just signs on the dotted line with you and gets you to that closing table. So today I'm going to welcome a professional, P.J Vilardo, president from Millennium Mortgage. Welcome, P.J.
Thanks, Jonathan. Glad to be here.
Hey, first off, let's start off with this. What are you drinking? What do you have in front of you?
I have Scotch Neat.
Scotch Neat, and I'm doing tequila, mango, coconut, something, some Costco concoction here. That's delicious.
I like
We're going to go with that. So again, welcome. PJ, tell us a little bit about your company first, where you are now.
So Millennium Mortgage, we're a full-service residential mortgage brokerage located here in South Florida. And we do everything from conventional, FHA, VA loans to non-QM and beyond.
What I love about you guys is you're non-conventional. I know you say conventional financing, but you're anything but conventional. You guys, yes, you do all the same stuff that any other lender will do,
Right.
but you guys look at things from a different light. There's efficiencies in your process. There's more knowledge and personality behind the relationships that you guys make, which is why you're here today. So let's dive in a little bit about who PJ is and how he became the man he is today.
Okay.
So what got you into mortgage? Who, what, when, what happened? Why'd you do it?
Gosh, man. All right, so let's dive in. So I got into mortgages in 2013, and it was really kind of a backup plan, to be honest. Originally, I went to school for finance to be an investment banker, and I did a internship and realized how just cutthroat it truly was. And it just was like, hey, man, it's not for me. My mom was actually in the industry. She was for about 20 years. She was a mortgage processor. And when I was in college, she said, PJ, you should get your license. What if some of our family members or friends want to refinance
You never know.
or purchase? You never know. And so I said, okay, Mom, gosh, mortgages, it's not really my thing, but I'll do it. So I got licensed, and when I graduated, I started originating loans while in the service industry. So I was in the restaurant business, and I would go in, and I was working for the same lender my mom was, and I would go in at 8 a.m. and leave at 3 because I had to go set up the restaurant, 4, sometimes 5 nights a week. So the way that I got in was from my mom. She taught me from a processing standpoint rather than just a sales standpoint. And I think what that did is it helped separate me to be a very detailed loan officer. Let's face it, most loan officers are not detailed. It's like throw you-know-what against the screen and let's see if it sticks. And I was the opposite. So I was very calculated, and the files just, everyone loved me. The underwriters loved me, the processors loved me. And then from there, I started in Southern California. That's where I was born and raised in 2013. Followed a girl to South Florida, and that girl is now my wife, 2 kids, houses later, dog.
The American dream, move to Florida with the family.
Yeah, move to humidity, hot, sweaty South Florida.
So what you're telling me right there is you started with processes and procedures and knowing what was coming down the pipeline when you were speaking with someone from day one.
Yep.
So your personality made them feel comfortable, but your knowledge and experience without even having it is what really made them confident in your ability to get them to the closing table. And I think that's something you do with your staff now. How do you apply those lessons that you learned in the beginning to what you're doing now with the team that you manage in Millennium Mortgage?
So I think the key difference is, and I learned this from my mom, is to have a servant's heart, to really understand what people are trying to do. And if you can build that rapport and that trust and have a really good work ethic to do that, it will translate across different things. So I've always kind of coined myself as a blue collar guy. I grew up blue collar, but now I'm in a white collar industry. So blue collar guy in a white collar industry. That work ethic will never change. So, the Dwayne Johnson always says the hardest worker in the room. And I love that because it's so true. Someone may be smarter than me, younger, wiser, whatever you want to call it, but they will never outwork me. And I take that as like a personal, not vendetta, but like a personal just thing to prove.
Yeah, always. You carry that chip on your shoulder.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I love that you quoted The Rock. I love that. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson
Yeah.
made an appearance here. I love it. So let's go back to the origin story. We're going to keep going with that.
Yeah.
So going from the service industry, waking up, working on the mortgage side from 8 to 3,
Yep.
switching over and going into the restaurant. How did you find the time to balance that and still be kind of not necessarily a kid, but a young person
Yeah.
who wanted to enjoy life at the same time in Southern California?
Yeah.
How did you balance that and still find time for yourself and not get burnt out?
I just always had this drive. I knew when I was younger that I wanted to be successful. I didn't know what that meant. I just know that, I saw my parents work really hard, and, it wasn't like we were poor or rich, but there was enough to get by. So I always wanted to see. I saw other people, have money, and what money's not everything. I heard Jim Rohn, the business philosopher, say one time, money isn't everything, but sometimes it sure seems to rank up there with oxygen. And it's not about what money, can or can't do. It's the options that it can give you. So I always knew I wanted to do something with finance, with money, to be successful. And the way that I just figured to balance it is, hey, I'll have evenings. I mean, I'm younger. I can go out at night and have a good time. I can go out on the weekends and have a good time. But that balance, I didn't really look for it as I was young. The balance is now probably way more important in PJ's life today.
For sure. Married with a couple kids.
Yeah.
Running a business, especially a demanding industry like real estate and mortgage.
Yep.
Agents want to be able to reach you 24/7. It doesn't matter. I don't care that you have 2 kids.
Yep.
My buyer needs a
Yeah.
pre-approval, right? That's more important
Exactly.
than your children eating.
Yeah.
Take the fork out of your
Yeah.
mouth, buddy.
Give me that.
So how do you balance that now? How do you find the time to be a present father, impactful on your kids' lives, and still be an impactful partner for agents?
So I realized that one of the things I learned from multiple mentors growing up in the mortgage business is that as much as I wanted to do everything myself and be there and be available, you have to learn. Successful people learn to delegate. And I still have a lot of agents that I work with, and I still take their calls as much as I can. What I typically tell them is, most of them we have pretty good relationships now, is like, hey, Saturdays, the first half of the day Saturday, I'm available. After later, Saturday and Sunday, if it's an emergency, I'll figure out a way to get it done. But if it's not, can it wait till Monday? But as far as, the team is concerned, I still have to be available for them.
Of course.
And that's kind of just, a agreement Jenna, my wife, and I have, is just, hey, if the phone rings, guess what? That puts food on our table. So I don't think you'll ever be able to replace that. Will it get less, burdensome maybe? Or your phone doesn't ring? I mean,
maybe.
I was just going to say. Well, we could leave that one up for debate.
I have found that through time, yes, the consumers and the agents, they can be understanding of that and respectful.
Of course.
I mean, we all have a right to a life.
Right.
Right. But as a leader, as a manager, an owner, a businessman, the people that work with you and work for you, if you enable them with the ability to do what they need to do, they become that conduit between you and the consumer, or you and the agent,
Yeah.
and they're able to kind of eliminate some of that conversation, much like I experienced myself. I'm
Right.
not very accessible to the average person. I have a team that is there and trained and ready to assist them at my extension, the same exact structure. And the idea is everyone deserves a life. Everyone
Agreed.
deserves time for themselves.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
for someone, there's many realtors who get licensed to be MLOs. There are people who want to get into the mortgage industry because they see dollar signs. And just like in real estate, it's not what you see on HGTV.
Yeah.
There's no TV show that I know of following a lender, which could be interesting. Bravo,
Yeah.
I just coined that one, so
Yeah.
you can't use it. So what is a piece of advice that you would give someone from the inside looking out saying, hey, you don't know what it's like? Here is something that you should expect when you're getting into the industry.
Great question. So I always tell, because a lot of people approach me or have over the years, and even more so now because Millennium's growing, can I do this? Is this something I could look to do? And if you're starting in the mortgage business green, I tell people 2 things. Number 1, expect not to make money for 2 years.
Wow, 2 years.
That's what I typically tell them. And then the second thing would be is you need to find a mentor or start as like a junior, because there's habits, there's things, guidelines change all the time, every day, and there's so much that goes on. It's not like what you see, every day. And then what happens is that you start with one or two. Well, what happens if 50% of your pipeline, drops out? So you have to get to a point where you're working on, 10 or 15 loans almost at one time in order to start seeing, maybe 70, 80% of them close. But you can't be, I see a lot of real estate agents and a lot of loan officers, and then they'll dabble in insurance or they'll dabble in something else. And
That's
like
the
the saying
plumber
goes,
who does electrical and AC.
Exactly.
And we'll build your house.
yeah,
too.
the handyman can do everything except he's not licensed or insured to do anything, So, but it's jack of all trades, master of none. You can't do all of them successfully.
Yeah, you can do many things decently or do one thing really well.
Correct.
When you were starting in the industry, you obviously didn't start as a business owner and entrepreneur.
Mm-mm.
You went through, I assume, what many realtors do the same way, is they went to a big company name, and felt that they needed to go there, get their education, go to the school of hard knocks,
Yep.
right? Take your time and get your education. So was that the path you took? Did you jump in a different way? How did you kind of rise through and get to the point of separating and being PJ, president
Yeah.
of Millennium Mortgage?
So the way it started for me is because my mom taught me the ropes. I went and worked for a small lender in Southern California. To back up a little bit, when Jenna and I were dating, she had moved to California for 2 years. That was like her goal. And when she finished school, she said, "Hey, I'm going to go back. I just finished, my doctorate. My mom has a practice. That's always been my plan. Would you be willing to go to Florida?" And I was like, "Well, I'm licensed in California. I'll get licensed in Florida and give it a go and do mortgages there." Yeah. So I started with a small lender there, learned the ropes for a little bit, and then when I moved to South Florida, I actually went to work for the oldest direct lender in South Florida.
No names needed.
No
Just
names.
stick it
They were around
like-
since like 1976. And what's crazy is that I started in October. The owner came out and said, "Hey, we're going to close the doors on the forward mortgage division, and I'm only going to do reverse mortgages in December." So I was there like 60 days. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to go to a bigger, lender. So I went and worked for a larger lender. Was a loan officer there for 3 years. Had a mentor. That was my most success, was learning from that mentor and having that kind of platform. Then the same mentor and I, we opened up our own branch. We ran the branch for a couple of years. After that, I went and worked for a smaller lender, just looking for opportunities because I'm learning this whole way, right? So I'm getting like all these like feathers in my cap, so to speak.
What was the catalyst that caused
So-
you to change? Like,
so
why
the-
go from one to another?
The catalyst was is that not all lenders offer the same stuff. Some of them do usually a few things very well. So the larger lender had a national footprint, which was cool. The smaller lender that I went to work for after I left the big one, this was in 2017, I wanted to learn to become a lender potentially myself. That was kind of always the game plan. I saw these other people do it, and I figured, if they can, why can't I?
True.
So I said, I'm not going to learn how to become my own lender working for a big retail. So I went and worked for a smaller one and got a more hands-on approach. Then I realized after a couple of years, it was like, you know what? It's time for me to
make
do
that
this
jump.
myself. Yep, to make the jump. And of course, there's a lot of, without getting into detail, there's a lot of capital contributions and so forth needed to become a lender. So I said the only way to start is for me to become a broker. And then that's when Millennium was founded during actually the pandemic.
Oh, really?
In 2020.
Wow, that's an interesting time to
So,
start a business.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hey, that's where great stories come from. There's circumstances that lead to ultimate results, and yours
Yeah.
starts in the pandemic. I had a kid, and you started a company. Mine probably cost a little bit less than yours,
Yeah.
but in the end,
Yeah.
one
Sure.
valuable. Anyways, so as you've gone through, one thing that strikes me as being stable for you or consistent is your ability to build relationships, whether it's with consumers or with real estate agents. And knowing the market and everywhere that we are, the relationship with the agent is premier with the mortgage brokerage. So how important is it for you as a mortgage broker to interface and maintain those relationships with agents? And how would someone start off and start to build those relationships?
So I would say, agent and mortgage, I think relationship is obviously the most important. From my perspective, from the mortgage side, agents are the lifeblood to our business, and so are relationships. And for that, you have to dig a little bit deeper because it's a like a tag team approach almost. You know what I mean? If you go old school wrestling, tag each other in because they go hand in hand. If the agent is only as good as their lender, and their lender is always only as good as their agent. And so the way that I was able to build my relationships was when I moved here, I had $8,000 in a savings account, and I took a commission job coming from Southern California to South Florida. And the way I built my business, knowing no one here, is I said, let me be your number two. Because I figured that I had enough knowledge and I worked hard enough that the number one eventually would screw up. And
there's an opening.
That's how it happened. I kind of got my hat in the door, and then, the agent started referring me business. And for most of my agents, they become, like friends. Like we have different conversations in just real estate contracts and, hey, financing contingency, and hey, when's a closing date? It's more so like, hey, how are your kids? Are you coming to, a holiday party? Are you doing, different things like that? And so, the relationship is super, super important. And going back to how would I continue to build that is just be there. Answer the phone. It's very simple.
Would you do anything differently at the beginning, knowing then what you know now? Would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, I think what I would have done is, I'm towards the tail end of, I guess, the millennial generation. But I would have probably tapped into social media a little bit earlier than we currently do. We are now.
Love the content you're putting out.
Yeah, we are now.
Consistent video, tips, love it, very engaging.
Yeah.
I saw one today of you punching the camera.
Yeah, with some gloves on?
With some gloves on.
Nice.
And it said, we don't dance around the ring, we knock it out.
Yeah.
Right? Other words, but
yes.
We knock it out. So let's talk about that for a second. What did you mean dance around the ring? Are you talking about lenders not giving you a straight answer? What do you mean there?
Yeah, I think too many, the saying my dad used to say, and I was born at night but not last night. So I've been in the industry long enough to know that you either know your stuff or you don't. And if you're gonna dance around and sugarcoat it and stuff like that, you're just dragging everyone along. You're dragging the consumer along, you're dragging the agent, any other referral partners that are involved in the transaction. And so our goal at Millennium, and my goal as an LO to this day, is to always shoot the client straight. The client, the referral partner, hey, this is difficult. Hey, the income's a little all over the place. We're going to have to put this together. It's going to take us some time. Not, yeah, it looks fine, put it in. Yeah, it looks fine, put it in.
And deal with the issue later.
And deal with it, yeah, because,
upfront.
Right. The worst thing that could ever happen, I think, to a consumer is to lose their earnest money deposit because I screwed up or because someone on my team screwed up.
Yeah, it's personal responsibility. I mean, these
like an
people
oath.
are making the biggest purchase they may ever make in their life.
Yep.
And what might be 5, 10, 15,000, we may look at it and say, oh, it's worst case scenario, you lose 5K. But to them, that could be disastrous, life-changing.
Yeah, and we see what it takes for people to put $5,000 down on a contract, from all different walks of life. That could be someone's like, hey, no big deal. And that could be someone's, month, 2 months, 3 months it took them, or longer, a year to save $5,000, to not touch it, but save $5,000. Right. So it's important.
Well, you think about it, the average American lives paycheck to paycheck, the vast majority.
Yep.
And that $5,000 is a big impact when you're going paycheck to paycheck. I mean, and 5,000 is a small deposit.
Yep.
So we may be talking 15, 20,000, depending on the value of the property, of course. And that could just be crippling for a family and stop them from buying a house for the next 5 years.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. One bad experience can just ruin it.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Current market conditions. I'm going to ask you about something I've been seeing a lot shared on social media lately. I'm not talking about the silly marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, we'll use that.
Yeah.
That's our optimism in this time. But what I did see was a 2-column comparison, which I found very intriguing. It showed in 2021, you would overpay for a house. You might go $100,000 over asking price, waive appraisals, still put down 10%, have that lower interest rate. And I think the way it looked, it came out as a $450,000 house was like $3,000 a month, approximately. Now you come now, our current market, yes, your interest rate is 2-3 points higher. However, you're getting a discount off of listing price instead of overpaying. You're getting seller concessions. You're getting different negotiation tactics along the way. With that 2 or 3% higher, you're still only paying, I think in that situation was about less than $100 difference in your monthly payment. So really, how bad is it? Are there scenarios like that you're able to compare? How are you able to make things work now for buyers and still make it affordable for them to buy a home?
Yeah, I think, obviously everybody gets scared of the rate. And I mean, look, rates, they're high. They're the highest they've been since 2002. All right, so we're at a 20-year high. But what everyone needs to understand and realize is that real estate is cyclical. If you look back at history, real estate has a great 10, maybe 12 years, and then there's a little bit of a correction, and it comes down. But what we're seeing and what consumers are experiencing now is the impact. January rates are threes, right? And at one point, about 6 weeks ago, they got up to 7%, 7.25%, which is crazy, but as the saying that you use goes, there's not that much. I personally would rather buy in a market now because I know that this interest rate is not going to stay like this forever. So I would rather get a seller concession. I'd rather have a seller maybe help me do a temporary buy down, on my interest rate or something like that, than pay $50, $75, $100,000 over appraisal and waive my inspection.
Yeah.
What happens if something goes wrong with the house 6 months after you bought it?
There goes your addition.
Yeah.
Your additional monies.
Yeah. Or, and so I think what what consumers need to understand is that home equity here in South Florida, average appreciation can be anywhere from about 3% on a low year to 7% on the high year. So if we've had this crazy appreciation go up and now it's starting to come down, it doesn't mean that your home will not increase in value or that the bottom is going to fall out or that the market is going to crash. When I educate consumers, I tell them, look, when you buy real estate, this needs to be a 3 to 5 year play. It's not like I'm going to buy this house and 6 months later I'm going to sell it, or a year later I'm going to sell it. This needs to be, a longer term investment. And so in this market right now, I think it's a better market to buy than paying over appraisal and waiving inspection as it was in 2020 and 2021.
I completely agree with you. But when you're looking at situations like this, God, I hate to keep using sayings, but don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And the market will always come back to a level where it made it a smart investment for you in the long term. If you look at that trajectory back from 1900, let's say, right? That market is always trending up. You have that slight correction, with the exception of 2008, which I don't believe we're in a 2008.
No.
You look at what lenders were doing back then, and they were giving, your landscaper could buy 5 houses by saying, yeah, it's 40 lawns, give me a house.
Yep.
But nowadays, the restrictions and requirements for approval are so much more strict. Not strict to the sense where it reduces the number of people that can really qualify, but it requires more proof and evidence that you can actually pay for the house that you're buying, that it's not just going to drop out like that. People aren't getting overextended.
Yeah.
So the bottom won't fall out. We're seeing a minor correction, which is normal in a healthy atmosphere. And it's not going to go down in the long run. It's just not.
Yeah, it's not. That's one thing I learned when I was young. When I first started in mortgages, is that I learned that real estate appreciates, and almost every other cool or materialistic thing depreciates. Cars depreciate, boats, toys, all these things.
It doesn't mean we don't like them.
It doesn't mean we don't like them. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean we don't like them. But real estate over time will appreciate. That's why most people. That's how they started making their money.
So, mortgage, like real estate, has no retirement plan. We don't get that nice little severance package. We don't get anything walking away. We have to create our own.
Right.
So, what's your retirement plan?
So,
without disclosing too much.
Yes, no. So, I have, being a business owner, and this was an education for me. I have a SEP, which is a self-employed IRA, so I can contribute to that. I have real estate. I have,
That's what I was looking for,
another portfolio. You got to practice what you preach. That's another thing I tell the team all the time. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing if I'm not doing it myself.
No, completely agree. I remember going through the process of buying my first home. That was after I had already started selling real estate. And it's hard to advise people when you're not really walking the walk, right, and going through that. And seeing just the appreciation on the first home that was the start of my portfolio and creating my retirement plan. Same thing. Real estate's my life.
Yep.
It's going to be my life, and it will be my life after my life. And it's going to create that multi-generational wealth that gets handed down, asset to children. Children hold that over and keep going down. And the way I see it is when you buy a house, you just became an investor and started the ticking clock for 30 years until that becomes a completely income-related asset right there.
Yep.
And just waiting to
That's-
set that clock to plan my retirement for 30 years. What are some things that agents starting in the business? We're going to do a little lending 101, rapid
right.
fire, lending 101.
All right. I like it. Let's do that.
So when an agent is first getting into the business, they really don't know anything about mortgage. They don't. And to be honest with you, I could speak with people 20 years in the business who think they know title and think they know mortgage, and they don't. So when getting into the business, give me top three things that an agent should know before they open their mouth to a consumer about mortgages.
So I think for the most part, agents shouldn't say a whole lot about mortgage because number one, they're not licensed to do so typically, and it's that open mouth insert foot. So the first thing I would say is find a lender partner that you obviously know, like, and trust. Number two is I would get educated by them so you can tee up that conversation of what you're going to have with the consumers. And the third thing is as an agent, as a new agent, I would not waste any of my time taking people to look at properties unless you know that they're pre-approved.
It's a hard place to be, though.
It is.
You think about that. I won't take a customer out until they have a pre-approval, but there's 10 agents waiting around the corner who are ready to take them regardless because of the potential, especially in a market like we're in right now.
Yep.
You have somebody that's willing to look, I'm going to go take you to look.
Yeah.
Because there's fewer buyers, there's more sellers right now. We have a higher level of inventory, which is another reason now is a great time to buy. You have more choice and more selection.
Oh, yeah.
But how do they navigate that and not push customers away when they're pretty scarce to begin with? I mean, there's a fine line there between I'm not going to take out someone who's not qualified, but at the same time, I need to further this relationship. I need to work with these people and get them to trust me so they trust my partners.
Yeah.
So getting them into the car, or people don't really drive in cars together anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I had a customer in my car, forget it. But getting them out with you anyways,
Yeah.
or getting them out to a property and putting old sales tactic, you put the product in the person's hand,
Yep.
right? You give them some touch and feeling of ownership. So getting that agent and the customer out to the property, and that's where I would do it. Is, okay, we looked at one house, it was worth my time to get you here and build this relationship, because even if you can't buy now, you might be able to buy in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, but I'm going to be the person who gave you the shot and got you down that pathway with my partner, who's then going to push it right back to me, which shows you those valued partners again.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to give me the top 3 things as PJ's email, PJ's cell phone, PJ's website.
Should have done it in my Instagram handle too, right?
Exactly. That's 3B nowadays.
Yeah. I always joke and the I say, the realtors or the agents are like ice cream, right? And the mortgage loan officer or the lender is like broccoli, and everybody wants the ice cream before they eat the broccoli. But when I grew up, my parents made me eat the broccoli before I ate the ice cream. So I like that analogy of maybe taking them to the first house.
Maybe my mother was a realtor. She made me sit at the table until I ate the broccoli or no ice cream.
See?
Maybe she was a realtor.
See? Yeah.
I want to go back. You talked about one regret you had, which was not getting into social media earlier. And social media is a big part of the world we live in right now.
Yep.
I mean, I don't read a newspaper anymore. I don't
Right.
go on Google to look at the news. Honestly,
Yeah.
open social media. You'll stay up to date with the news.
Yeah.
So why do you regret not getting into social media? What would you have done with social media differently to capitalize for yourself?
I think I would have just got my name out there more. I mean, look, to this day, you can't really have enough relationships. So I think if I would have started putting educational content out there from the get-go, I think the footprint would have been larger. And I think, there's a lot of people that I follow that I look up to, and I just see, I mean, you have people that have been in the industry like 2 or 3 years that are just doing crazy volume, that can blow up and do that from a following. So I think, to build, selfishly, to build my own brand, to build, luckily when Millennium was co-founded, we started doing social media right out of the gate, and it's helped. But I can imagine what I could have done potentially 10 years ago.
And
You know.
it's, yeah, we can always say that, right?
Right.
Look back 10 years, what would
Shoulda,
you have
woulda,
done
coulda.
differently? Definitely would have done some different stuff with real estate, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Buy some different properties.
Yeah. I would have definitely bought more. Definitely. bought more.
Hindsight's always 20/20, and the idea is that people listening to this can take these lessons that you've experienced, that I've experienced, that the different guests have seen, and apply that and not make those same mistakes. That they can be more valued members of our real estate community and maybe even be a partner, right? You never know where that's going to go.
For sure.
But continuing down that line, so now with social media, you're taking a really unique approach, or I think is a very smart approach, which is the educational side. So many businesses and people go on there and just advertise and just beat them over the head with advertisements, but that's not who you are.
No.
And that's a very successful path to take, is the educational side. How can I help you? If you feel that you're getting a benefit or a piece of knowledge out of this, maybe I'll be that person, that number two that you
Yep.
call after the
Yep.
fact. And that's the same thing that resonates for real estate as well. Agents need to stop advertising them and start educating consumers, and they will be that trusted source, just like you are on the mortgage side.
Exactly.
So what have you found to be a strong tactic or a strong method that we can then apply to our own?
So the mortgage business is full of, acronyms, and there's so much jargon that goes on in the mortgage business that for the common, person, you start shooting out all this stuff. DTI, you're like, DTI, debt to income ratios, all these different things. And I think when you break it down in layman's terms for people to understand, it's like, oh, that makes sense. It's not really that confusing. That's a cool perspective, or that's different. I didn't know that. And then not only education for consumers, but education for your realtor partners. Two, loan programs available, down payment requirements, what can and can't be without going into crazy depth or, thinking that they're going to need to be the next, loan officer.
One thing that I like that you guys do is each week you're just keeping people updated as to what the current interest rates are. We don't have to go seek different sources. We don't have to qualify where we're reading it, or,
Right.
oh, where'd you see that interest rate? That was on USA Today? Oh, that was on CNN.
Yeah.
Oh, they're off. What's the
Right.
deal? No, you're giving one consistent source to keep realtors updated and not have to seek that out or search for it. So how does somebody sign up to stay up to date on interest
Yeah,
rates,
so
you guys?
if you go to our website, millenniummortgage.io, you can sign up for weekly rates. You'll receive them twice a week. And what we've done is, as a mortgage broker, we have over 30 plus relationships with wholesale lenders. And what we do is we put those rates out there live for the consumer. A lot of other lenders or brokers won't do that. They want to hide that because they want to try to bait and switch the consumer. It's not us.
That goes back to you
So-
hitting it direct, right? Knocking it out.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm here to shoot them straight. I want to earn the business truthfully, not by some sort of tactic or something like that. So again, go to our website, millenniummortgage.io. You can register to free rates, and you'll get them twice a week.
What do you say? Millennium Mortgage, 2 L's, 2 N's, 2 M's?
Yeah, if you say them together, yep. 2 L's, 2 N's, 2 M's.
I love that. So we're going back to pre-approvals, right? Not getting, quote unquote, in the car or
Yeah.
meeting a customer until they've eaten their broccoli,
Yep.
right?
That's right.
So what are some questions or quick hits that an agent can ask a consumer to think down the road of what loan program is going to work for them? Or should I connect them with the lender now? Are they ready? Do I even cross that bridge right now? Or do I have to cast them into credit repair land?
Yeah, I mean, lenders look for most things, and I like to joke is the again, using acronym CIA, right? Not the CIA that you
Central Intelligence
Agency? No, not the CIA you're thinking of, but most lenders want to see these things: credit, income, and assets. So having just a general conversation with a client, they get referred to you, hey, where's the down payment coming from? Where is the income? Are you a W-2 employee? Are you self-employed? When's the last time you had your credit checked, or what do you think it is? Those types of things right there could tee up the whole transaction. Knowing those, so once they have that, it will kind of guide them to either teeing the conversation off to me, or one of us at, hopefully at Millennium, or to just, take some notes and have that conversation so that way they can share it.
So CIA to CYA,
Correct.
right? So
That's right.
now we're going to keep going along the line of questioning, right? Now, instead of asking the consumer about qualifications and getting them set, what are questions that an agent should be asking a lender or a potential partner that they're going to strategize with, that they're going to work with, they're going to include with their consumers consistently? What are some things an agent should ask a lender to really know?
Yeah, I think number one is selfishly agents, should ask, why should I choose you? Number one. I see a lot of, newer loan officers that have been in the business, going to seek, and that's one thing that I always held close tightly to me was seniority. Now I've been doing this going into year 10. I've been around the block and I know it. So you don't want someone making a rookie mistake to cause you to not get paid.
Right.
And
you don't want to learn. You don't want them to learn through mistakes with you.
Exactly. So I think agents should ask, how long have you been doing this? Why should I choose you? What separates you from everyone else that's
Well, I'm gonna put you on the
texting me
spot.
or
Do
calling
you have
me?
your elevator pitch?
I had multiple versions of it.
Why should I choose you, PJ?
I think people should choose me because I've been doing this for a long time, and we have a plethora of products, and I have a plethora of knowledge that I guarantee you most loan officers don't know. We don't operate in the box of vanilla. We literally do everything, and that's how I became the number 2 for most people. That led into number 1.
So you're not vanilla.
We're not vanilla.
Okay.
We're not your.
What would you
your
consider
vanilla.
Millennium? Vanilla with sprinkles? Dulce
yeah,
de leche?
Yeah, I would say it's we're a combination. We're like Yogurt Land, where you could just put all the
There we go.
the toppings on there and
Without
mix it
eliminating
all up.
branding, we're Menchie's. You can pick your flavor.
They
right?
all right.
Combine
Fair.
them. Awesome. So, PJ, one thing that I love about you is your passion. You are an eccentric, energetic, positive, optimistic individual. I've seen it with your team, with your staff that come around and how they respect you. I've seen it with agents and how you speak with them, and you relate to people. I don't care where you are, who you are, where you're from, or where you came from, or what you've accomplished. You're a real person. How do you maintain that passion when the industry can be so volatile? Ride the highs, survive the lows. How do you maintain that passion?
One thing I learned too when I was younger is that I never, because I saw what happened in 2008 happen to my mom, even though she was on the operating side, and she always told me, don't ever live above your means, because the people that I worked with, a lot of them, when it was high, they were riding high, and then when the bottom fell out, they were nowhere to be found. And so I always like to have a positive approach. I mean, yes, real estate is up and down, these things happen, but I know that it's cyclical, and I know after every single expansion comes recession, and after every recession comes expansion. So it's more so of a waiting game. But I'm passionate because I truly love to help people. I have a servant's heart. Sometimes it can be your greatest asset, can also be your worst,
Your biggest weakness.
Yeah, your biggest weakness. And so I care about people so much. Right now, it's more exciting for me to see people on my team, LOs on the team, close a loan or get through a tough hurdle than it is for me to close another transaction. It really is.
I believe it.
So
So I've always said there's two different types of leaders. There's those that will take everything they can from you while they can and then move on to the next. And there are others who find success by making others successful. And that's a passion that I have and I feel that you have as well. So it's a reason that I enjoy speaking with you and I enjoy working with you. So having that servant's heart, having that desire to help everyone, to kind of be the quote unquote hero, to kind of help guide them or shepherd them through this field of success. How do you get through that weakness? How do you overcome that when it's so easy to just get roped in and almost taken advantage of?
yeah, and I've gone through trials and tribulations of that happening, and I think the best thing for me is that I've learned to kind of step back. If I'm going through a tough time or if something's happening, I've learned to step back, and then also to rely on others. Seek counsel in others, and it's worked. At the end of the day, what I realize is PJ now versus PJ, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, before I worked for someone else. And if you fall into someone else's plans, they may not have much plan for you. But if you build your own and can follow your own dreams and build your own plans, then only you have control of that. So I would never want to be negative on that. With rates being the way that they are, it's tough. It's a tough landscape to operate in, but I know this too shall pass.
I completely agree. There's ups, there's downs. You got to
Always.
survive the low and it's going to come back. But even still, there's still transactions happening right now.
For sure.
There's people like yourself that are getting creative, lenders that are being creative in how to make this work and be more advantageous to buyers.
For sure.
Leverage the market that we're in right now. So going forward, how have your lessons through COVID, 2020, the boom of 2021, and now seeing what we're seeing in 2022, how have any of these changed or impacted how you plan to run your business going forward? Have you made changes?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely when we were ramping up, like when we started Millennium, we had already had a lot of volume coming in, and then the volume just grew. So you're always trying to, it's what the mortgage industry was dealing with, was scaling, right? So you scaled and you built up as if 2021 was never going to end, and then it came to a crashing halt. So what I've learned is to be more maybe strategic in how we build. I'd rather put maybe a little too much on some of our team members, plates, or us as an organization's plates, before I'm going to go out there and do a massive, scale. So what, 2022 has taught me versus 2021 is just always be prepared, and you have to be lean and nimble to make that pivot. That's why the bigger lenders right now are hurting more than
They have a harder time
the smaller
shifting.
shops.
Yeah. So
It takes longer time.
completely agree. So pivoting can be powerful. Positivity can be powerful, but relationships, and sometimes you got to be just number two. That's no bull. Thanks for coming, PJ. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan.